There's another team. We try to measure also the satisfaction of the employees because we got a lot of critical notes from other organizations who said the pressure on these nurses is so high because they have to decide on everything. They don't have managers. So we started in 2011 to measure the satisfaction, and we became the best employer of Holland, and also the years after. Only 2013 we were the same, we have the same figure as the KLM. So that's, they were just 100 above us, but they dropped now. This is another team. Important, of course, was how do the patient experience what we are doing. And from the start, we also have the highest rates on this too. So we are working together with the patient and elderly organization. So we ask them, how do you perceive us and what do you think we can do better or what should we focus on? For example, we're doing now a lot of projects on prevention. So we're doing 120 projects on prevention, and we try to find out what are the best practices and how can we learn from that. And we have less admissions in hospitals and nursing homes because of the way of working. We have a lot of innovations that just come up from one team or another. This is a radio program every week, radio pressure stockings, call it, yeah, something like that. And it's in Amsterdam every Tuesday. So nurses are doing that. One of the nurses who started it was a journalist before, and she said we have to communicate in a different way with the community. So she said, let's start a radio program.
Heel veel plezier en ik verklaar nu de waterkop officieel open. En go! Come out, take care and see. Come out, take care and see. You get me going on. You get me going on. Kijk, wat ik voel me is heel weinig. Ik ben...
Yes, if you want to see it, you can see it on YouTube. But it's the walker race. It's started in 2010. And last September, we had our Olympiade in the Olympic Stadium in Amsterdam. And it's also started with just one nurse. It was one patient, she was 85, and she said, there are competitions for everybody, but not for us, people behind walkers. So she started this competition. And now in a lot of places in Holland, they're doing this competition, and they come with buses to Amsterdam, and then we have a great event at the Olympic Stadium. And the idea is, let's focus on what people can do. Let's focus on what's important for people in this period of their lives, that they can't do everything, but they can do a lot of things. So, and then we go to also a quite important point for sustainability. We said if we create an organization which is independent, so it's a foundation, not-for-profit foundation, then we are not influenced by shareholders or by investors or something. So we are doing everything with money we get from the health insurance. The overhead costs are 8%, so we have more money for care, innovation, education. We have every year a 3-4% surplus, so we have enough money to do all these projects and new innovations. And we have quite a low sickness rate. It can be lower. I think we're doing now a vitality program. Then I'm going to the last slides, because it's almost, I take too much time, I think, or not? There's a few minutes and then I'm done, and then the important part comes from Nienke. The cost benefits for the care. What we try to show from 2008, 2009, that's by just letting nurses do what they think they should do, that the cost would go down. So the idea was that bringing good solutions for problems would lead to less hours of care. So and that was what we measured. First, we did two researches by Ernst & Young, and then we did research last year by KPMG. And the result is that we delivered 35% less hours of care, and people need a shorter period of care when you focus on solutions and on support for and on empowerment. So the government took, and all the political parties are stimulating other organizations to work the same way. And at the moment also other sectors are interested in the model. So the policemen, schools, they're also thinking about how can we use these organizational principles. But in healthcare, I think there is not one organization in Holland who is not thinking about self-organizing teams at the moment. And this is what we want to achieve. My son is 22, my youngest son. He's becoming a nurse. And I think we have to make the work for nurses attractive. So the young people, I think it's very easy to have meaningful work in your daily work when you can do what you think you should do. And you come at home in the evening and you are proud about what you have achieved in all these difficult situations. So that's what I want to, I feel responsible for leaving the nursing care for my own children so they can have the same the same privilege, I could say, that I had for taking care for all these people. So this is what I wanted to share. And now you're going to hear a case from Nienke, and then we have time for some questions. Thank you.
So I am a district nurse by Buurtzorg in the Groningen. It's in the north of the Netherlands. And well, I started just 6 years ago. I worked for a big organization and it spent a lot of money, and it was, I don't know the word in English, but they get bankrupt. You know what it is? So that's why I decided I have to go away, and my whole team wants to go away. So we phoned to Jos, and well, we could start a team in the center of Groningen, and we had to look for an office. So we go by bike, do our work. So we saw a little shop was empty. So then we could start an office. We made a logo, and then all the people knew we were there. It was our start. We have in our team now 12 nurses. It are highly educated nurses. And we also give the care in the hospice. So in our district, there is the hospice, and there can come people from the whole city or also from everywhere from the Netherlands. And 5 of my team are working in the hospice, and the other ones are working in the home care, but we can change. So in the hospice, we give the professional care, and we work together with the volunteers. And they just be there the whole day, and so when work is finished in the morning, then they can go visit the people in the district, go to the patients at home. So we can change. And so it's a part of the home care, our hospice. And then in the home care we have also what Jos told, all kinds of patients. We have, of course, terminal ill people, but we have patients who suffer dementia, wound care, patients who come home from the hospital who have to recover. So it's different. To give an impression about what we do in the home care, I will read you a case, and then later we can have a short talk about it. I will tell you about Caroline, and it's a real story, so it's all what happened is real. Caroline is a 60-year-old woman. 6 years ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she has been treated with chemotherapy, but now that the cancer has also moved to her brain, further treatment is no longer possible. During the interview, her husband explains that he helps her in the shower, but that this is difficult because she is not stable. As a result of the metastasis in the brain, she has coordination problems and cognitive decline. Well, we put in place twice weekly help with showering in order to support her husband. Her husband is a director of a large architectural firm. And since his wife has been ill, he spends less time at the office, which creates a strain at the company, within the company. And he arranges that family and friends are at home, so he can go to the office. Caroline's situation gradually deteriorates. Her confusion increases. She tries to get up with the danger of falling, and she can no longer be left alone. The dose of dexamethasone is increased because the expectation is that the metastases in her brain are the cause of the unrest. As a result of the dexamethasone use, her blood sugar level increases, so she is put on insulin. The care is expanded to 3 times a day for treatment, to determine blood sugar, and to administer insulin. The use of aid is increased with a high-low bed, toilet chair, and a bedside table. She now receives all support in bed. There is regular consultation with the GP. Caroline's situation worsens. A discussion takes place about her staying home to die. Her husband doesn't need to make use of night care. For him, it's enough that he can reach us if need be. Caroline is increasingly drowsy and says that she is very tired. All medication is stopped. A start is made with the administration of midazolam via the buccal pouch. On the last day, we visit more often to see if Caroline is sound asleep and to comfort and support her husband and the family. That night, she passes away. Well, in this case, it's important we have contact with the GP. We can reach each other we have our mobile phone numbers. So it's stressful also for the husband, family. And also, in the interview, the first start, the intake is very important because that's the first conversation. And then we talk about what's important for you, what do you wish? And always continuing to talk about it, to have the conversation. So because what is playing, the care is doing a lot. And then we also have to prevent that the care is not overloaded. So we have to pay attention to it, and then it works. So then, and what is the social importance of giving care at home, like we do, is that it will continue to be affordable. So what we do is we encourage the self-management, we involve the care, and give prevention at home. And then always with the support of the nurse. So mostly when we ask them, what do you think, what is important? Then they say, I want to keep my own control. And that is important. So always the patient has always her own responsibility. And then the nurse, it is supported by the nurse. So the nurse has a coordinating role. Well, that's what I have to tell about it. And I think it's also important. We go by bike in our district, and it's the patients, we meet each other, we can greet each other, and so care is not so far from them, and it feels for them if we pay attention to them. So that's the way we are working by Buurtzorg. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Inka. That was very insightful. And thank you, Jos. I'm sure there's probably questions in the audience. We have 2 roving mics and 2 standing mics. So if there are questions, please raise your hand and I'll do my best to spot you.
Thank you. I get that there's no central management structure, but do you find in the individual teams that one of the nurses tends to take the lead, even if it's not formal?
Yes, sometimes it happens that it looks like that one of the nurses takes the lead, but everyone has a role, and you have to discuss about the roles. So also, when you think, well, one takes the lead, you have to discuss about it. And sometimes we don't bother, because sometimes it works, but you not always one person has to take the lead. There you have to pay attention for that. Yeah.
May I ask a question, Cath, please? And it's Cath, it's to you, really. How can you tell us anything about the project that you're starting on in Leeds around this, and how you've translated what you've heard from Jos and Inka?
Okay. The project in Leeds is being run by Leeds Community Healthcare Trust, so it's not involving the hospice as such. It's about our district nursing teams. So it's been led by a community matron, because it's about the expertise that were needed and looking at how that team can self-manage. So it's very much so in its infancy. I think one of the things which really excited the district nurses who came over to Holland was when we talked about caseload sizes. And the caseload sizes which the nurses were managing in Holland were much smaller. So our nurses out there at the moment might have caseloads of, well, doing, I don't know, 15, 16 more visits a day. But in Holland, it was much more focused. So, Ninka, you might only see 2 patients or 3 patients.
One day? No, 8.
8 or 9. So, but your caseloads were much smaller.
Yeah.
So it was much smaller and much more manageable, so that people could do much more with that patient as opposed to going in and doing a task and on to the next thing. And like you said, it was about what mattered to the patient. The other thing which was really exciting for us was how Buurtzorg involved the community and the wider people. So not just health and social care professionals, but what could the neighbour do who lived next door, for example? So it was a very interesting approach, and recognising that we've got many more resources out there which we just don't even tap into probably now.
Hello, I'm fascinated with you said that there were lots of other healthcare agencies or organisations that were looking to move to, oh, forgive my pronunciation, Buurtzorg model.
Buurtzorg, yeah.
I'm wondering how that has that happened? How culturally has that managed to occur? Thinking of moving from maybe a traditional management structure into this other structure.
We have some successful examples in Holland who transformed in 2 years from a hierarchical organization to a self-organized organization. So they were competitors, but we don't see them as competitors. We say, okay, let's try to support them in a way that they can achieve the same quality. The first years we started, there was a lot of criticism. A lot of people were very cynical. They say, oh, this can only be done when you're with a small group of nurses, and it's very idealistic, and these kind of responsibility for the first 3-4 years. After that, when we had already 2,000, 3,000 nurses, they said, oh, perhaps it's working better. Perhaps we should also do it. And now there is a national program supported by the Dutch government that everyone who wants to change their organization can have support and money to change it the same way. And also the health insurers now, if you look at their procurement, they're buying almost what we are doing. So they ask questions, are you working with small teams? What's the education level of the nurses? What kind of skills do they have? So the mindset in these 8-9 years changed with all the stakeholders. And we also try to have discussions and dialogues all the time with all the stakeholders. So we work closely together with the ministry, with the inspection, with the elderly organizations, and with the nurse organizations. Okay?
There's a bit of a conflict of interest in the room, Jos, because it's a room full of healthcare managers here. What's happened to all the managers in Holland? And my second question is, just before the session started, you said you don't even have a job description at Buurtzorg. Can you tell us a bit more how you recruit?
Yeah. Yes, you know, when you don't have to regulate and manage all these things anymore, then you can ask yourself, what's my value? Some of the managers became coaches, so they decided to, and they're much more happy as a coach than as a manager. Some of the managers started to work again as a nurse. So what we saw is that they also saw that what was happening in the organizations was not going the right direction. So a lot of them, there are some researchers that the middle management in organizations have a lot of stress because what they see and what they see it should be is quite different. So there are a lot of dilemmas, ethical dilemmas, about what they're doing and what they should do. So I should advise anyone just to think about how can you change your role and more supportive at the end for the patient. I think we should change the focus from the organizational perspective to the patient perspective. And where it leads to, it's usually a process where the awareness is growing, and in this period you find solutions also for yourself. So what we've seen in the organizations which changed, also the management changed, but it went without very big problems, because at the end everyone understood that when it's better for patients, why shouldn't you do it? And then about this job, we try to avoid all kinds of regulations which is not helping. So job descriptions, a lot of HR things are disturbing the daily work. So that's, yes, I'm sorry to say, but that's really true. So just try to think what I said about the needing principles. When I started to work as a nurse in the community, we didn't have all these things, but the focus was very strongly on the community. What are the important networks? What are the people you need to, who are the people to need to create a solution for the difficult things you are meeting? How to create support systems? What you see is by focusing more and more on the management structure, is that the focus on the community almost disappeared. So we said we have to bring it back, and we have to organize, it's called organizing in an agile way, be very sensitive for the environment. And then when you do that, you are very flexible, and the things you are doing will fit much better in the community than when you take the organizational perspective as most important. So that's how we work, try to avoid things, and try and stop with a lot of things. And then create energy from bottom up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's incredibly simple but stunning, the work that you're doing. I just wonder how we can do that in the UK with a different funding system. It almost seems to me as if we'd have to rip the whole model up, the whole of the the NHS up, because obviously we're funded differently, we work differently, we have lots and lots of managers in place. So my question to you would be, how can we make a difference on a smaller level, Individuals, us as individuals, what can we do to make that difference? Because I love what you're doing, I'd love to work that way, and I think we used to, and we've come away from that. How to get back there now with this huge layer of bureaucracy really above us, I don't know how we can actually do that. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Thank you.
I think just start talking about it. That's important. Sharing the ideas and try to find ways yourself, because the solution is in yourself. So it starts with, we also started just with a few nurses, and we sat together, and the preparation took more than a year. So, and then we really didn't know if it would work, but we expected that a lot of nurses would be inspired by the idea. So, and by making it very practical, just making it small and practical, that we say, okay, this is the payment system, that's always also in Holland. It was not supporting this, but we said we can do it within the payment system. So we saw it just as a small experiment. And then, as Nienke said, all these nurses, a lot of groups, they just felt empowered by the idea that it was possible. And then it happened by itself. So I know from all the meetings I had in England and Scotland, from the top, from the NHS till the daily practice, that the awareness is everywhere. I was last month I was with a conference with the NHS employers, and one of the issues was how can we organize in a sustainable way? How can we financially be sustainable for the future? So and making things simple, practical, it's a start. And then you can easily start with a small project. You can take a neighborhood as and try to find out what works, and then see what's already been doing in where was it?
In South Leeds. So
in South Leeds.
Yeah, start small, I think, and also talk to your community healthcare trusts and listen to what because they know that we've heard from Margaret McCartney this morning about district nursing and how it's on its knees in lots of places. They're not coping. And it's just thinking they know the model's not sustainable and are looking elsewhere. So you might find there's interest already in your patch looking for different models of care.
It almost sounds like an uprising,
Yes.
actually, because it's like the people, you were saying it works from the people upwards, and then you were saying about that comment that the chief exec made around nurses don't know what patients need now. So
Yeah.
if you have that level of belief up right at the very top, how, from the bottom,
No, but you don't need
it's
it.
almost like an uprising.
You don't need it. You have to turn it around. They will believe it when they see it. So you should never, like this vision model I showed, it's creating independence. So, and I always say create independence for yourself. Don't be depending on a system. So I read Kafka when I was 16, the process, and I was really impressed by this book, how systems can do things with people. So I was always thinking, okay, how can I avoid that the system is taking over the control of the individual lives of people? So I think we should just turn it around. And it's already happening in a lot of places. And young people, because if you look at the younger generations, they are more and more focusing on networks and on other ways of working together. So it's just a matter of time. Just connect with young people, start something, and show that that's possible.
Thank you. You're a pioneer.
Okay, we've got a question at the back.
Jos, John Davis from Dorothy House, and thank you for an inspirational lecture. But asking a very boring managerial question, how is your model in Holland funded? Is it fully funded, and does it come from insurance, from government, or are there any gaps?
The biggest part is funded by, from this year by the health insurance. So that was a big change in the system in Holland. So it's, I think, 85%. Then we have some smaller parts which is paid by the government. Some part is paid by the patients themselves with the personal budgets. So we have 4 different money streams, but we say it shouldn't influence what the nurses are doing. So it's coming in just by the billing, and the head office is taking care for that. The nurses just take care for dealing with all the problems of the patients. But perhaps Nienke can say that I don't think it affects your daily work.
No, it doesn't, no. We're normally working and the payment will come, so it's arranged.
We disconnected the payment system with the professional work. So we said a lot of things we are doing, we are not paid for. But that's no problem. There's no problem when there is coming more in than there is going out. That's like at home. So we say, but because of the model has so low overhead costs, we can do it with less money. So at the moment we will have, I think this year we will have 8 or 9 million surplus, and then we have to think about how we are going to spend this. So that's really a big problem. But so if you as a starting point, we said we think that the way we are dealing with the patients should not be influenced by the money streams. And we said the way we are organizing leads to less costs, so we can do it within the system in a very profitable way. So this is what I learned in these 2 years economics.
I think we've got a question at the back, and there's another to the left.
Judith Park from St Luke's Hospice in Sheffield. Thank you for your presentation. And I guess this is another management question, but I'm really struggling with this model to understand the accountability and lines of accountability and governance that sit within it, because flat structures, in my experience, are quite challenging and actually aren't sustainable on a long-term basis. So can you just explain how the nurses and who they're accountable to, what the governance framework around the model is, and without a job description, how do you actually recruit the right person into the post and actually identify their training and development needs? Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, the governance, it's a big issue in Holland that the governance at this moment is not functional. As Nienke said, she worked at an organization, the biggest one in Holland, with 20,000 people working, and they got bankrupt. And nobody in the board, in the directors, was seeing what was happening. So what we said is we have to turn it around. We have to show on a nurse level what we are doing. So the accountability of the nurse is much more important than the accountability of the organization. So that's the reason that we started with the Omaha system. So every care plan, every intervention can be monitored by the one who wants to monitor it. We do it for knowledge reasons, so we try to use it for data and do research on these things. We asked the inspection in Holland to come and see what we are doing. At the moment they're following 3 teams for a year to learn from the way we are working for the future governing rules. So we think we have to make governance more simple. It's about what you achieve on a patient level and how can you make the individual nurse responsible for what she's doing. So that's what we try to do and try to show, and it led to a very nice discussion in Holland about what's functional and what's dysfunctional in governing rules.
I think there was a question about recruitment there.
Oh, recruitment, oh yeah. No, the most important thing is the education, I think.
Yeah.
But that Nienke can tell.
Education.
But how do you recruit your colleagues?
Yes, well, when you have to do it yourselves, so you have to develop yourself, you have to develop your team, it goes automatically. So I think the most important thing is that we can develop ourselves very well. I don't know if it's answered.
But if you want a new colleague, if you need a new colleague,
where do you... Colleague. Oh
how?
yes, we make advertisement and now we do it on Facebook because it's working. And well, we do it ourselves. We have a talk with a new colleague, and we have all do it in consent in our team. So 3 of us have a talk with a new colleague, and then we decide if we take the new colleague. So.
But what are the most important skills of education? Do you look at the education level?
We look at the education. We have mostly the highly educated nurses, so we look at the education, but also how they behave, how social, and also if they know Buurtzorg, if they choose for Buurtzorg, is also important for us. So that's why we look to, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. There's one on the back row, and then I think there's one over here, and then we've got to rein it in. So, first.
Okay, thank you. It sounds fantastic. When are you bringing this to England?
It's already happening. Beside Leeds, there is we're doing a project with Guy and St Thomas's in London, and I thought about 3 or 4 other places where people want to experiment with it. Last week we had a delegation from Scotland, so I think England has to hurry up, because the ministry in Scotland wants to do 4 tests for pilot projects. So I think it's good to have different places, different people who are trying this out, and then try to learn from the experiences.
Thank you.
I think we've got.
I've got 2 actually, very quick questions. I work at St Richard's Hospice in Worcester. I manage community nursing services. 2 things. You talked about looking at your documentation. That really intrigues me, because for a first visit it can take us 2 hours to document that. So I wonder how that sits with your nurses not having lots of documentation around, because we're always taught if it's not documented it didn't happen. That's the first one. Second one, the role of the coach rather than a team leader. Can you tell us a little bit more about the coach role and what they do?
You mean the care plan, or what do you mean? The administration, the assessment?
Care plans, documentation of the care you've provided. I'm here.
It's the use of
I'm there. Oh, I know I see you. I can't see because it's. But all what we have to do. Everyone is responsible for his own care plan. So you make your own care plan, and also the administration, like the planning. It's lots of work. There is one in the team who makes the planning, but everyone can change the planning. And
I think she wants to know about the documentation of the patient, eh? The patient.
Yeah.
So when you start and do the assessment and make the care plan, how much time does it take?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. But well, I do the interview, and the interview takes like 3/4 of an hour, and then I make the assessment. Well, it doesn't take a lot of time. It's only fill it up. So I think maybe again 3/4 of an hour, but then I have a whole assessment and care plan made. Yeah.
But I think it's very important. I think is that we don't see the assessment as the most important thing. It's a continuously thing that you see every time again. You get new information, you build it. So, but what I say, I discussed in Holland that the assessment institute was useless, because what you need to do is to build a trustful relationship and to find out who in the environment is able to contribute to what's happening. And so it's a continuous search for information, so the documentation is getting more and more in time.
So I think to add to that, I think all your nurses have iPads, don't they? So you're all going out with, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's all electronic.
Yes,
it's all electronic.
Yes. So we can do it at home.
Always digital. We try to avoid paper because of our nature and environment. And the role of the coach, it's the coaches are doing a lot of different things. They support teams when there are, for example, problems, small conflicts or bigger conflicts, disagreements, we say. And then there's some. Do you use the coach often?
No, we never see the coach, because when it's working well, when it's working well in the team, then the coach doesn't come. We know her, but yes, but more.
She's friendly. She comes
she's
for
friendly.
A cup of coffee.
She's very friendly. I think she's very busy, but well, when the team is going well, then you don't need the coach. So it is working. Sometimes she comes in. We have a meeting, and sometimes she comes. Well, it's maybe once a year. She comes to visit our team, and yeah.
Okay.
But she's involved when there are problems that the teams can't solve themselves. So sometimes it's one of the colleagues is ill and for a long period, and they don't know how to handle it, and then they ask the coach to give advice on that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think there's probably a whole host of questions still to come, but I understand that Jos and Ninka will be available during the drinks time.
Yeah, you can ask
So
us.
I'd grab them and collar them the questions you're burning to ask, because I'm sure there's more. So I think if we can just put our hands together, please, to thank Ninka and Jos.
Thank you.